broke some. So I went up to the local hardware store here, Home Depot, Lowe's. I don't know if y'all have those over there.
No, we don't. I know them.
Yeah. And it's just this little, it's braided silver wire that's not insulated. And it's, it's probably something like 16 or 18 gauge, something like that. Right. And I bought like a 20-foot roll of it. And that I was like, man, this is exactly what's on the antenna already. And I just strung that back together and it worked fine. But I'm just like, man, if I was going to keep this thing, which I haven't decided if I am or not, I would go back through and put better, like nylon lock nuts on everything. Yeah. And do a little bit better measurements of measuring out that wire before stringing around the fiberglass arms, because that was like 2 bands were good, and then 3 bands were like way off. Like I couldn't even hit it with a 3-to-1 tuner, and I'm like, man, this is terrible. But that's just poor measuring in the wire is what it was when it came out of the box. But I mean, it's certainly usable, and you can just do some trimming on it. But it takes a lot of time to put it up, measure SWR, bring it back down, all over and over for 6 different bands.
The only thing that I found, Jason, was when I was doing it, I had a conflict on 12 and 10 meters. They kept on, if you got one spot on, then the other one would be thrown out. And I think you just have to accept that 12 and 10 will never sit nice together.
Yeah, so
go for which one you want. And obviously where 10 is because by using a single wire, it's a very narrow band width for the SWR where it's resonant. So with the 10-meter band, you may as well just use a tuner with it and just get the 12 meters in the right spot. But it's performing very, very well. Yeah,
it's good.
I do like that one. But eventually I want a hex beam. That's what I'm aiming for. And I see the one that you were showcasing on your latest video, one of your latest videos.
Yeah.
That was, and I did ask you the question, because that was a buddy hex beam. Is that right? A buddy one?
Yeah. If you give me screen sharing privileges, I'll show it to you. I got a couple pictures of it.
No worries, I will do. Give me a second.
You want to get rid of your cobweb, Andy, and get a hex beam?
Yeah.
Save me making it.
Right, you should be okay now. You should be okay.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. So that's
that's it.
Yeah. I've actually got that. That's in my backyard right now. Wow. Because I was using it to I lowered it down last night. We had some thunderstorms come through. That's up at about 22 to 23 feet at the base of the hex beam, which is where Buddy Pole recommends it to run, because the center mast where all the wires kind of intersect to in the middle there is probably about 4 feet, 4.5 feet, like little bit, maybe 1.5 meters for you guys. And it's once you get up, and of course the 20-meter wire is on the very top. So when you get up to like 22 or 23 feet in the air, which I guess would be like 7 meters roughly.
Yeah, roughly.
They say that's where it performs well. It doesn't need to be up at like 40 or 50 feet. So, and I've worked 2 or 3 contests with it just like that, setting up what I would consider not very high. And it works great. I really like it. I think it's a well-designed piece of equipment, really.
Who's that one?
That's the Buddy Pole. The greatest thing about that one is it's not released yet. The owner of Buddy Pole, Chris, is a friend of mine. We've gone on DXpeditions together. He sent me one as a prototype, and he's made a couple of small configuration changes since he sent me mine, due to some feedback he got from me and several other he's got. The greatest thing about this one is that it weighs 7 pounds. I don't know what that translates to pounds. To what do you guys use for weight over there? Grams?
No, we're still in pounds.
You're still doing pound. Okay, so it weighs
You are.
About 3 kilos.
Yeah, 3
kilos. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So it weighs about 7 pounds when it's fully assembled, and it breaks down into a kit about, I don't know, probably about a meter, maybe a little bit longer than a meter.
Right.
Maybe about 1.5 meters, something like that. And he made it to be portable. He didn't make it to be put up at your house and leave there forever. He made it so you could break it down. You could take it out to a park. You could even take it up to a summit if you really wanted to. Yeah. I mean, it weighs more than a wire sitting in your, bag that doesn't weigh anything. It's still 7 pounds, but a 7-pound hex beam directional antenna with 6 bands on it. I mean, it's a great performing antenna for what it is, really.
How long would it take you to put together, Jason, if you have one? How long would it take you to?
Once you kind of figure it out, yeah, there's a process that he told me. He walked me through it on the phone the first time. About 20 minutes, if you've done it 1 or 2 times. Once you kind of like, oh, I know where to go and which direction to go now. About 20 minutes, something like that.
Jason, just as a little note, most of the Brits here are old enough to be bilingual as far as weights and measures are concerned.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
You still go down the shop and buy a quarter of sweets, don't you, Pete?
Dolly mixtures, you mean?
Half a pound of jelly beans, yeah.
Yeah.
If only the shops were open, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
You can always order them.
I'm just looking now, and I've seen that there's an ultra lightweight D-Hexpedition portable hex beam, but I think that's by G3TXQ. But that's a bit, yeah, I think I'm going to have a look at this for this buddy one when it's,
I'm pretty sure, I want to say he's got a UK distributor. I can't remember who it is. He told me.
He has, because Body Pole's well known over here.
Okay. Yeah. He's got distributors actually everywhere. He's got somebody in Australia that's a distributor. He's got somebody in South America somewhere. So yeah, he tries to be as worldwide as he can. I can't remember who he told me who the UK distributor was, but I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, once he releases it, I suspect I keep getting people come by the video saying, where can I get this? I went to their website. It's not there. I'm like, I don't know. It was actually supposed to be out last year, and like everything, because the COVID slowdown and everything, it got pushed back like so many things did.
Martin Lynch and Son.
Is that who it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, what wire is he using on that?
It's insulated. It's just black insulated wire. I'd say it's probably like maybe 14 gauge. It might be a bit smaller than that. It's either 14 or 16. I think it's 14 gauge, really. I don't think it's as small as 16 gauge. He says it will handle what we call legal limit over here, which is 1.5 kilowatts. Yeah. So it'll handle, as much power as we want to throw into it legally. So
I got to go over and strong arm him. He lives, his office is like 20 minutes from my house. So. Oh yeah. He didn't tell me about this, so I've got to go get him.
Well, he's had a prototype for like a year, and he got mad at his dad because his dad keeps getting on his 17-meter rag chew net he does every day and talking about it. And people are like, well, where can I get this? And he's like, Dad, shut up. So Bud, his dad, Bud, who I think he's W3JJ, if I remember correctly, or W3LL. Anyway, I forget Bud's called, but Bud is who originally designed Buddy Pole. That's why it's called Buddy Pole. And Bud, he's a riot, man. He's a fun dude. But yeah, he keeps talking about it on the air, and Chris is like, shut up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have a look at one of them.
I mean, it's certainly a well-known make over here, Jason. So
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took one down to Spain a couple of years ago. Worked very well. One of the little portable ones. What's it called? Buddy Pole Minor or something like that.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, there's a buddy stick that he does that's a vertical, and there's a buddy pole and the buddy pole deluxe, and there's 2 or 3. It's kind of all the same thing. It's just different configurations about how you put it together. So
Yeah, buddy stick, that was it.
buddy stick, yeah, those are pretty popular as well.
I'm going to assume he's got a different hub for this thing, not the Versa-T, but
No, it's everything on it's new. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I've got the 20-foot mast sitting, well, actually, right here.
Yeah.
With the antenna, but yeah, I'd be interested if you can. I assume I can reuse my mast for this. No,
I would. It's actually made to go on top. When you say mast, you mean MastWorks or the original buddy pole mast?
The buddy pole mast with the tripod. Yeah. So
It's
it looked like the same thing you had there, but
it's not. It's not. This is the one I had was actually his MastWorks, which is his sub company or whatever you call it. They're the tripods that come in, I think 10 and 15 or no, I think he's got a 10-foot, a 20-foot, and a 30-foot or something like that. And the coolest thing about these tripods, okay, is that the base is really once you open up all the base, the base is probably the top of the base. Once the tripod's fully extended, the top of the base is probably a good 4 feet off the ground, something like that. So it's very wide based, and you can adjust that. You don't have to do it that wide. But then the mast that goes up the center, and I've got the tallest one. I've got the 30-foot. That's the biggest one he makes. The mast that goes off the center, that's got these sections that you extend up on top of one another, is not round. The mast is oblong. It's almost like triangle shaped, but the edges are rounded instead of. It doesn't come to a point on the triangle, not like this, but it's more like kind of like almost like that. So what that does is when you get an antenna up in the air, it keeps the wind from turning your antenna, in a 180 degrees. It still kind of moves a little bit just because it's not that rigid for a portable setup, but it keeps it from spinning your antenna completely around 360 degrees because it's not a round mast anymore. Plus, he's got a crank handle in the bottom of the tripod where you can actually rotate the mast and 360 degrees all the way around, so you can point a directional antenna anywhere you want to. And then he's got 2 guy wires that go around the mast that do not turn when you rotate the mast. I thought that was the coolest thing about the design he did. So he's got one kind of down low and one kind of 2/3 of the way up. And when you sit there and crank that antenna around, the guy rings just sit there. And they fit over the mast well enough to hold it in place, but they're not like clamped onto the mast. So the mast turns inside of the guy ring. And it's like, man, he really thought up what he was doing when he designed that. I thought that was a really cool design. So, and now he's working on it. And instead of the hand crank on the tripod, he's working on a setup to put a Raspberry Pi on the tripod. And then you take your phone and you connect via Wi-Fi to the Raspberry Pi and you rotate your antenna from your phone while you're sitting in front of the radio instead of having to walk out there to it and, that kind of thing. So some really cool stuff he's coming up with.
I think we ought to start now, everybody.
That's an idea.
It's really interesting, I have to say. Very interesting. I get more pleasure out of antennas than I do rigs, really, if I'm honest. I do. So I quite like them. Yeah. Anyway, welcome, Jason. Thank you so much for coming. Really pleased. I'm sorry we have an England football match on tonight.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I don't care.
Well, that's very kind. Very kind. Andy, are we ready to rock and roll?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. The terrible twosome we are. It's not good, is it? Okay, over to you then, Jason. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. I think y'all wanted kind of like a Q&A on DMR as I understood it. Is that kind of, I can give my
whatever you want, Jason.
Okay. Well, feel free to ask any questions. I can.
Brother, you've gone muted.
It said the host muted me.
Ah.
Oh, did he?
I did. I got a pop-up message. The host muted me. I was like, okay, I said something wrong. So I could kind of give a very informal talk that I've done at a couple other clubs, and just I mean, does anyone not know what DMR is? Has anyone ever not talked on DMR? Never talked on it. Okay, y'all have D-Star and Yaesu System Fusion though over there, right?
Yeah.
You know what that all that is. Okay, so DMR is just kind of like an updated version of D-Star. It's actually very, very similar to the voice codecs that they use to translate your analog voice into a digital format in DMR and Yaesu System Fusion. They're very similar. They're pretty much the same thing. It's just how they differentiate it and spit it out on the other end is kind of the way they do it. It's kind of how they change it. But DMR is digital mobile radio. It was originally designed. It was actually originally designed in Europe by an institution called the European Telecommunications Standard Institute. It's what ETSI is the acronym for that, and they say it's an ETSI standard. And it was designed to fill the narrowband requirements of commercial and public safety radio, so fire departments, police departments, that kind of thing. And it was designed as an open source project, so that basically, you know, if you would adhere to a small set of standards when you're designing your transceiver, you could obtain the rights to, or not the rights, but you could obtain the plans and the programming information you need so that you could create, if you're a radio manufacturer, you could create a radio and it would follow a certain set of standards. Then it would be compatible with radios created at other companies. So unlike D-Star and Fusion, you know, D-Star kind of does now, even though that Kenwood D-Star that they make has been discontinued because of all the problems they had with that fire in Japan. But people are open to make D-Star and Fusion radios now, but I don't think anyone wants to jump onto the ICOM or Yaesu bandwagon. So a lot of these Chinese companies and Italian companies and several places in South America are using DMR because it's kind of like a little bit more open standard throughout the world. So it's easier to obtain. It's less expensive for fees to make sure that you're making it in the right programming language. And it's kind of a little bit more, it was done with a compatibility mindset when they designed it so that they could be compatible with other manufacturers. So it was not made for amateur radio, which some people take issue with that. Some people say, well, D-Star was made for amateur radio and Yaesu System Fusion was made for amateur radio. That's true. DMR was not made for amateur radio. But if you're going to be honest with yourself, you know, CW and Morse code were not made for amateur radio. AM and amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, transmission types were not really made for amateur radio. So just like everything else, well, most everything else in amateur radio, the transmission modes that we use today are typically made for something else, and we take them and use them as our own, and a lot of times improve upon them. And that's kind of what we did, what some institutions did with DMR. So basically the very short version of it is that DMR and System Fusion are both 12.5 kilohertz narrowband standards. So what DMR does, and Fusion kind of does this too. What DMR does is DMR takes that 12.5 kilohertz standard and it splits it into two segments, 6.25 kilohertz each. So you got 6.25 here and 6.25 here, and they merge together, and it's 12.5 kilohertz, which is still considered narrowband. At least it is over here. I assume it is over there too. And then DMR allows you to use voice and phone transmissions on both of the 6.25 kilohertz standard, 6.25 kilohertz segments of that bandwidth, which they call time slots. And what they do is each time slot will key up and down at the same time. So this one will be keyed up while this one's keyed down, and then it'll switch. And it does that about 33 or so times per second. And it's so fast that we as humans we can't hear it. It sounds normal to us, but what it does is it allows two conversations to go on at the same time on the same frequency without interfering with one another. So it essentially turns your repeater into two repeaters. You can have conversation between two or three people going on in time slot one, on the same exact frequency, same exact repeater. On time slot 2, you can have another conversation between totally different people on a different talk group. And these two conversations don't interfere with one another. So it takes that narrowband and kind of multiplies it to where it's even more bandwidth and frequency efficient than other modes are. Fusion kind of does the same thing, except they don't use their second time slot. They don't call them time slots, but they split their 12.5 kilohertz into 6.25 also. They use one 6.25 time slot for voice and the other one for APRS traffic. That's why on your radio, if you're talking to somebody on Fusion, it says when they're talking to you, you're watching their call sign on the screen. It tells you the distance that they are from you. That's what's doing that. So it's transmitting their GPS coordinates or APRS coordinates at the same time that they're talking. And then when you're receiving that, you're receiving their voice and you're receiving their GPS coordinates. That's why on System Fusion, you can do the DN mode is the regular mode called digital narrow. And then you can change it to VW mode, which is voice wide, which squelches the GPS portion and goes voice wide. So it's a 12.5 kilohertz on the voice only, and it doesn't use APR or GPS on that second time slot. So it kind of does the same thing, but it doesn't use voice on both. It uses voice and data rather than voice and voice. It's kind of the same thing. But over here, the best DMR radio, the most popular DMR radios are probably the TYT radios. The MD380 was one of the first ones that was actually marketed to the amateur radio community. TYT makes a unit called an MD380 that was a mono band, mostly on the 70 centimeter band, but they did make a 2-meter version also, hold about 1,000 channels. And those got real popular because they were selling for around $100 over here, which is pretty cheap at the time. And then several other companies came along and made some here, made some there. You can get some commercial grade Motorola and Tate radio and Harris radio, DMR radios that are not really made for ham radio, but TYT was really kind of the first one to market to the amateur radio community. Since then, they were also the first ones to market an actual dual band DMR radio to the amateur radio community, which was the MD 2017, which came out in 2017. And then they made 2 or 3 models since then. And about after that, year or so after that, Anytone kind of got into the game. And today, the Anytone radios are really kind of the top of the line DMR radios in the ham radio world. Anytone makes what they call a D878 and a D878 Plus, and the Plus model incorporates APRS and Bluetooth. And they make a D578 mobile radio, which can be configured in 2 different ways. You can configure it for commercial grade, what's called a FCC Part 90 type radio over here, and so it can be legally used on commercial and fire frequencies and stuff like that. Or you can configure it for the ham radio side of the radio, and it adds a third band, which is the 220 megahertz band, 1.25 meters. And it's low power output on that band, but it is usable. You'll be able to monitor with both analog and DMR with that band and use that radio on 2 meters and 220 and 440, all kind of not at the same time, but all from one radio. So that released like a year and a half ago, and it's been real popular. A lot of updates have been done to it, and a lot of people are really enjoying that specific mobile radio. There's a lot of companies making HTs. There's not as many mobiles out there, but there are several out there. And the question I get asked all the time is, who makes a dual band mobile or dual band DMR radio, whether it's a handheld or a mobile radio, that's not made in China? And the answer is no one. Nobody outside of China right now makes a radio that's dual band and really kind of marketed towards the amateur radio community that does DMR and analog. So you can get commercial DMR radios all day long that are monoband, really good quality Motorola, Vertex standard, Harris radios, but none of them right now are dual band. They're all just monoband. So a lot of that's a Radioddity GD77. Those are actually made by TYT. They contract with Radioddity to make that radio. They're a decent choice. They're a good entry level radio, I would say. A lot of people like to use that. They make some open source hacked software. Somebody wrote some hacked software for it that would overwrite the stock software on that radio. And I haven't used that, but I'm told that it opens up a lot of features. It's kind of a neat thing that they do with it that is able to be done. But that's kind of the world of DMR right now. I mean, you guys over there, I think I took a trip to, my wife and I went on a Mediterranean cruise. So we spent this was 2 years ago. We spent a weekend in Barcelona and then got on a cruise ship and went around France and one stop outside of Rome, and a couple stops in like Greece, I think. And then we ended up in Venice is where we stopped. We stopped, and the cruise ended in Venice and stayed there for a couple of days and flew home. And I would bring up an app on my phone that would show repeaters around there. I was looking at DMR repeaters. You guys have a really big network over there called DMR Plus, which I'm not as familiar with, because we have some of those repeaters over here, but they're kind of few and far between. We don't have any in my state right now. We have them in we have Seabridge Networks and Brandmeister, and there's a new network called TGIF that is around. So DMR networks can be kind of confusing to some people because you can physically connect your DMR hotspot or DMR repeater to independent networks that sometimes do and sometimes don't communicate with one another. So it's not like D-Star and Fusion where you just fire up the radio and connect to D-Star reflector 12 Charlie and you're on D-Star. Now we've got different networks out there where this one network may have a reflector called 12 Charlie, but this other network has a reflector also called 12 Charlie. And since the networks are independent of one another on the internet, they don't talk to one another. So it creates a lot of confusion in that regard as far as what network you're on. So an important thing to remember about DMR is if you're going to connect to a repeater or even a hotspot, if you go look at the Pi-Star hotspots and look at the servers, hit the drop-down list and look all those servers in there. Those are all different servers that are on multiple networks. A lot of them are on Brandmeister. A lot of them are on DMR Plus, and a lot of them are, and then there's more and more being developed for TGIF now too. There's other networks out there that it seems like every couple months they add something else to that list that's in the Pi-Star drop-down. But it's important to remember that not all networks talk to all other networks. So if you're going to coordinate where you want to talk to a group of people or something like that, you just want to make sure that everybody's on the same network so that the talk group numbers all align with one another. But it's a fun mode to get into. It's worldwide. It's inexpensive, which is one reason it's so popular, in my opinion, because there's a lot of different manufacturers making radios for DMR. So it drives costs down because you're not now locked into Yaesu only. If you want a System Fusion radio, you can go buy a Yaesu or you can go without. Well, now there's all these manufacturers making DMR radios. So some of them are just flat out better quality than other ones are. But some of them also have more features. They've started to incorporate a lot more Bluetooth into them. So you can use Bluetooth microphones or Bluetooth headsets. They're starting to do more with APRS, and some of them kind of work well with APRS and some of them don't. It's kind of a testing period they're going through right now. And some of the DMR networks allow GPS and APRS to be passed over the network, over the internet connected network, and some of them do not. If you ever want to try, one of the misconceptions about DMR is that you have to be connected to a hotspot or a repeater to get it to work, and that's just not true. You can use DMR simplex, and you might be surprised how far you can get with DMR simplex. If you go to a big ham radio show like Dayton Amateur Radio, or Dayton Hamvention out here in Ohio every year, or Friedrichshafen, which I'm told is still going on. The Germany show is still going to happen at the end of June, I'm told. There's probably a lot of people in that general area talking on DMR simplex, and it's a quiet mode and it reaches out real far, and it's a good way to keep in contact with people in depending on what proximity you are to everybody else. So DMR simplex is certainly possible. And of course you can do D-Star and System Fusion simplex as well. But it's not limited. Some people think, oh, well, it's limited to internet connected devices, and it's not. You can totally use it simplex. And if you've got a mobile radio driving around in the vehicle with an external antenna on top of your vehicle and talking on DMR simplex, you might be surprised how far you can reach out with it, because it's actually a far-reaching mode that does pretty well on the simplex side as well. So that is kind of what I have. Does anybody have any questions on what I said? Did I go too fast?
No, you didn't go too fast. No, it's fine. I tell you, one of the things I find, you know, I suppose I do use all the digital modes. And DMR I feel less comfortable with. And part of that is, if I'm honest, that, you know, I don't want to be on hogging a repeater or hogging anything really. But one of the things, if I call somebody and then I have to move off the calling frequency, I still do not know, after all these years, I still do not know if I can just turn the dial to the next channel and then transmit, or whether I have to disconnect, change the channel, connect, then talk. I don't know. And I've never seen a video on actually how you go from one channel to the next, from the calling channel, if you like, to the next. I don't know how to do it. One of the neat things about DMR, but it's also one of the most confusing things, is it's pretty much customizable to do it either way. If we're going to talk, I'll talk about Brandmeister for a minute, because they're a pretty big network. Brandmeister does have a disconnect number. You can create a channel on your radio and set it to group call of 4,000. And when you kerchunk or just key up group call 4,000, it disconnects everything you're connected to. So if you're on a calling frequency and you want to change, you can key up 4,000. It'll disconnect it from there. You can change it over and talk on some other frequency or talk group you want to. Also on Brandmeister, if you don't key up that talk group for 10 minutes, generally speaking, it will time out. Now, so it will disconnect on its own eventually, or you can physically disconnect it by keying up talk group 4,000. There are ways you can go into your Brandmeister dashboard and set up your specific Pi-Star hotspot to tell it to disconnect after 5 minutes or 10 minutes on all talk groups, or you can tell it to leave what's called static talk groups on, so that this one talk group is on all the time, no matter what. And you can customize that to your own liking. So it's possible to do everything you just said. So it really depends on if you're talking into a repeater, it depends on how the repeater owner set it up. And if you're talking into a hotspot, it depends on how you've set it up, and you're able to set it up either way you want to. So it's kind of one of the neat things about DMR. You're not restricted to how it works. But the principle remains then. The principle remains. I'm talking to you. I've called you up on the talk group, which is just the calling talk group. Right. And then you say, right, John, go to so-and-so. I then have to chunk 4,000 and then dial in the next one and chunk in. Correct. That brilliant. That's right. That's the first time anyone's explained that to me. And I've always been frightened. I can tell you, I've been on DMR. I look after a DMR repeater here. And I'm the first person to say that I've been on local, talk group 9 local, stop 2. Always, one, because I'm checking the repeaters working, but 2, because I'm too frightened to move anywhere because I'm not sure how to do it. Yeah. No, that's what you're saying is exactly right. Thank you. That's brilliant. Yeah.
The thing is here, Jason, where we are in the local area in Kent, we're dominated by the Phoenix DMR Plus network. Okay. Because that was the choice of the local repeater owners. Right. To adopt that system, and now they've gone over to the new one of free DMR. I've heard it a few times on Facebook and that, but I don't know too much about free DMR. I don't know about that one. Yeah, but I looked at Brandmeister for the first time 2 weeks ago, and you're right, Brandmeister in comparison to the others is very customizable from your dashboard. I intend to migrate across to that and just start using that, because I've got an 878 Plus, which is phenomenal. I've had the GD77s, I've had the Radiodities, I've had the Baofangs, I've had all the cheaper end ones before.
Yeah.
And but this one is actually it's very good. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's my current radio of choice for a handheld.
Yeah. But I'm also looking at now one of the I've gone back, I've looked at it, I've decided against it, I've looked at it again, and I think I'm going to get one of them RF finders, the portable hotspots.
Yeah.
Because that's perfect for just having it in the car, ready to go at any time. You can just connect. You're there. So I think that's going to be. And Moonraker are actually retailing them.
Yes.
I think that's the way to go because of the internal battery.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be a lot easier for me. But yeah. So the Brandmeister, 100%. I prefer that. That is a lot better for customizing it to how you want it to work.
Right.
And everybody's different, obviously. But, I found that one was the most appealing at the moment.
Well, I use Brandmeister on my hotspot. And unfortunately, although I look after the repeater, it's not my repeater. It's a licensing thing, Jason. I've got the full license, so I can look after it. And that's on Phoenix. And I use the Brandmeister on the hotspot, and that's brilliant. So I agree with that. I think it's a better system than Phoenix, frankly.
I'm not familiar with Phoenix either. There's probably a lot of different networks out there that I have not heard of. The ones I was primarily talking about are the ones we have here. But if a group of hands wanted to get together and create a whole new network that you've never heard of before, it's easy to do with DMR. You can do that and create a private network if you want to, and just do kind of whatever you want to. It's very customizable all the way around. That's one of the reasons, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons it's so popular.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Any other DMR questions, guys? Wow.
No, nothing. Quiet. I'll take them off of. I'll have them all off of unmute now because they might not know how to unmute themselves. There's one other thing I wanted you to cover for me this evening, Jason, and that was definitely the Xiegu. Is it Xiegu or Xiegu amplifier with the 705 and the G90, because you've used both the G90 with it and the 705, and I know that some of the operators here have got 705s, and some of them have actually got the G90. So it's just about talking about the amplifier, sorry, and what your findings were, your initial thoughts.
I've always heard it pronounced Xiegu. I don't know if that's correct or not. No, it's that one, the B model. They came out with an XPA 125A early on, and it came out about the same time that the X5105 radio came out. In fact, they kind of came out together as a matched pair before the G90 was released, and because I think you're not supposed to put more than 5 watts into the amplifier. So and they had some trouble with the A model, and they had this big recall, and they took them all back. So if you get one that's an XPA 125B model, those are the solid ones. That's the one I have. I've had no problems with mine. It's great on the G90 because you connect an interface cable with it, and you connect I think there's just one interface cable, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, you have to connect an RF jumper for the coax. But I think there's just one interface cable with the G90, and then it does band switching. So when you're talking on 20 meters and you decide the sun's going down, you want to go to 30 or 40 meters, and you switch your radio, the amplifier will follow your radio, and it's got a tuner built into the amplifier so that when you key up the first time, it tunes for you and you're all good to go. So it's a very safe way to use the amplifier with the G90 because they talk to one another, and they're very good that way. they're kind of made for one another, if you will. The 705 works almost the same way. The only thing the 705 won't do is it won't do band switching. So if you're talking on 20 meters, you want to switch your 705 to 15 or to 40 meters, you have to switch the radio, and then you have to go into the amplifier and manually switch to the amplifier to whatever band your radio's on. Right. And then once you go in there and do that, there is a way to use the tuner inside of the amplifier with the 705. So it'll tune your antenna. And we had really good luck with the 705. We did it. We used that setup with the ARRL DX single sideband contest, international DX contest here like 3 or 4 weekends ago. Yeah. And we had really good luck with it. You know, if your SWR on your antenna is already pretty flat, then you know that amplifier would push between 100 and 110 watts out of 705 running on 5 watts. If your SWR was a little bit off on your antenna, then the tuner and the amplifier would take care of it, but then you might only see like between 80 and 90 watts pushing out of the amplifier to the antenna. So it's still very SWR dependent, as you know, as most amplifiers are on the antenna. So it's good to have a resonant antenna, of course, but we made a lot of contacts, and it, other than the band switching, it's just as easy to use that. And it's one internet interface cable that some third party makes. They're on eBay. I think they're like $22 on eBay or something like that. And I had zero. I used it all weekend, and there was a guy there with a G90 and that amplifier, and I had my 705 and that amplifier, and both of those setups worked fantastically all weekend. So I think that's a really good matchup of an amplifier to either one of those radios. If you've got the Xiegu Xiegu X5105, it matches up to that radio very well, and it does do the band switching with that radio also. So I think they did a really good. They made a really good choice for amplifier after they worked the bugs out of the first version. So this B model that they have, I think, works really well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how the G90 external display will look when they've sorted that out as well, I think, Jason.
Yeah, I've been kind of disappointed with the G-Sock. It's it doesn't really do anything.
No.
And that was the biggest disappointment. I was like, what? It doesn't do, it's like attaching an external monitor to it. I'm like, that's neat and all, but seems like really expensive external monitor. And it's too many wires, 2 wires going from the G-Sock to the G90. And I thought that was really cumbersome. Yeah. So yeah, I've still got mine, and I'm probably going to watch and see what happens with it and hope that they release some firmware on it that does something a little bit better than what it does today.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So on something a little bit more closer to home for you, you must work your fingers to the bone in that shack, because you're producing so many videos. I mean, after you do the YouTubers, plus you do the, I mean, you must be producing more than NBC or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I like to keep on top of it. It's definitely there's a lot of stuff out there to talk about, man. People think that ham radio, there's nothing to talk about anymore. That's just not true. It's there's quite a few things out there. There's a lot of stuff that I just don't have time to do. There's even more stuff than I do that I would like to do that I just don't have time to do yet. So it's definitely fun. I have a lot of fun with it. Especially when I find other people on YouTube who like to, do collaboration videos together. That's always fun too.
Yes, it comes over very well, Jason, if you don't mind me saying. I mean, I'm not trying to be a critic.
No. I didn't think of that.
But it does come over. I think the fact that you're always friendly and genuine, you come across as a very genuine, friendly guy, and which obviously you are. But that's brilliant, and no wonder why because your channel's still growing, isn't it? Which is amazing. And you've been doing it now for a few years, haven't you? I mean, I lose track actually, but you've been doing it a while.
I think let's see. This will be in May. It'll be 6 years.
Yeah.
No.
So
get
a special badge.
Right.
Did you get an ARRL mug though? That's the thing.
I did. Yeah, I did. I did get an ARRL mug. Yeah.
Good for you.
The new CEO of ARRL is a really nice guy. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with the league because he's got a lot of really cool ideas with it.
Yeah, I've been a member for about 10 years, I think. So yeah,
great.
Yeah, so I like I read. I get the electronic version. Obviously, I read it on my iPad, so
right.
I don't have to wait for a post. But yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Sure,
Andy, you take over.
Okie dokie.
Since we're sharing it.
Yeah, since we're sharing. So has anybody else got anything for Jason? Because I'm aware that at the moment, Jason, it's getting kind of late afternoon for you over there, is it?
It's only 3:15.
3:15. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're happy to stay for as long as you're prepared to talk. But if you have to go off anywhere, then I'll completely understand. Has anybody got anything else to ask? Anybody got anything to ask?
We could embarrass them and ask who watches Jason's channel anyway, because obviously you and I do, Andy. But
yeah.
But we won't embarrass them because they might.
Oh, Jeff's got a question. Hold on, Jeff's got one for you.
I was just going to say, I have tuned into the YouTube videos of Jason's in the past and found them very informative and useful because, you know, when you're sitting at home on your own and you're trying to work out a problem, it's absolutely brilliant to just get onto the YouTube, have a look, and you've got someone there to walk you through it, and it saves you hours and hours of head scratching. So thank you very much, Jason, from myself.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for watching. I mean, if I didn't have anyone watching me, I wouldn't do it. So that's why I do it for all the watchers out there. So yeah, great to hear that.
Yeah, and also you've got a huge worldwide audience, haven't you? I mean, it's not just the States.
You know, according to the YouTube numbers, because it tells you, it doesn't tell you who is who, but it tells you had this many people from this area watch this video or watch your channel overall or something like that. It's actually not really that diverse. It's I'd say probably 97% of everybody who watches the channel is from the US. And I don't remember if they call it US or call it North America. They might include Canada with that number actually. But if you go down and look past those numbers, you know, people from the UK, from Australia, New Zealand, I think there's a few stragglers from Asia, but not much from Asia. But that's probably a language barrier thing. South America's Brazil. There's quite a few people from Brazil for some reason. So yeah, so it's quite entertaining to look and see where else people are coming from. And it seems like a lot of times in the live streams, we've got people coming in there with call signs that are outside of the USA. I see a lot of ZLs and a lot of Golf Zeros and Foxtrot 5s and that kind of thing. So I'm like, you know, it's fun to see that. It's fun to see that when you're just talking about ham radio and doing contacts like that. So
when you're doing videos and live streams, you're still getting good DX even then, aren't you?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I always say somebody comes in from the Philippines or from Brazil in the chat. I said, hey, thanks for joining today. Thank you for the DX. So it's good to see folks from over there for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to know that your efforts are appreciated and are worth it. As you say, if you were talking to yourself, it'd be a waste of time, wouldn't it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. True.
And I think when you change the shack round and you change cameras, and I mean, that's a lot of investment, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
You don't realize it's not just time, and then you must spend a lot of time on it. I think the investment on cameras and I presume you've got a mixer there as well for sound.
Yep.
So you know, there's a lot more to it than just a GoPro, isn't there? Oh
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of good channels out there that still use their iPhones or GoPros to record. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the cool thing about YouTube. It's real. YouTube is the actual reality TV of the world, because reality TV, at least here in the States, reality TV is not real. It's all scripted and put together, and it's just a big drama fest. But YouTube's where real people talk about real stuff. And some channels out there are pretty high production quality, but some channels out there are really just talking into your smartphone and talking about whatever you want. And they've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers to do that. So it's real people doing real things. That's one of the greatest things about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I go with that. My bucket list includes Friedrichshafen. Even though I lived in Germany for 7 years, I never made it. It was always at the wrong time. Couldn't get leave. And also, I guess Dayton. Well, it's not really Dayton anymore. It's up the road, isn't it?
Yeah, Xenia. They still call it they still call it Dayton because it's the Dayton Amateur Radio Club that puts it on. But yeah, technically it's in Xenia now.
Yes, I've been warned. You got to spend a lot of time walking around.
Oh yes, yeah. Friedrichshafen's on my list. Also, I was going to go last year, and then of course, everything was shut down. And I have not made plans to go this year because I keep thinking that, man, they're going to cancel it. They're going to cancel it, but they say they're not. But I don't know. It's possible I'll go this year, but most likely I probably will just. Even if they do go forward with it this year, I've got a few things on my plate right now, so I might wait till next year and just go when I know for sure there's no chance of it getting canceled at the last minute. So,
well, I can't see as it stands at the moment. I can't see Peter. You're muted, Pete. I can't see how they're going to have it on at the moment because they're about to hit a third wave of this COVID in Europe. And also, nobody from the UK can travel. We're not allowed to travel.
Let's go.
And a lot of people over here, amateurs, especially in the southeast of England, where we are, and so close to Europe. I mean, to kind of put it into a bit of perspective for you, Jason. If I was to drive to London, it would take me approximately an hour and 30 minutes to get into central London. For me to get into France, an hour.
Oh, a bit less than that if you go by.
Less than that. 35 minutes on the train, and I'm allowing for custom checks as well, passport control. But I reckon you're looking at in total an hour. You'll be sitting in France. Yeah. So, I can't see how they're gonna be able to have it. But you never know.
Yeah, you never know. My wife she works for a Big Four accounting firm. And several years ago, her company sent her to London for 6 weeks. And she stayed at the Marriott hotel that's right there on, I forget the name of the river, but it's right next to the London Eye.
Yes.
Thames.
Yeah, River.
Thames River. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So she stayed at that Marriott hotel. So I came over there and spent 3 or 4 days with her, and she'd go to work during the day and I'd go tool around London by myself. And I tell you what, that was neat. It is Westminster Abbey's just right down the road there. Yeah. And I went out on that bridge over the River Thames and bought hot dogs from the hot dog vendor on there because I'm like, I gotta do this. I'm in London, man. Come on. Yeah. So, but that was a neat place to visit. I would love to go back there someday. But we were looking at taking a vacation out there at one point in time because you can land there and take a train all over Europe. And I'm like, man, that would be a cool vacation to be able to see everything in kind of one sitting there. So, yeah, I knew it was close. Y'all are closely packed, especially with the great train system y'all have out there. It's not hard to get anywhere. I guess customs is probably the hardest part, right?
Yeah, that's the longest of the journey. That's the longest part because with the Euro tunnel, you just literally drive onto the train. So you drive through the customs straight down onto the train. You drive onto the train. 35 minutes and you're in France. And it's as quick as that. And if you look around for the deals, you can do that for as little as £15 to get your car over at certain times of the year. So there's 4 trains running an hour. So it's a pretty good system.
When Andy goes, they don't let him back in. That's the trouble.
They'll refuse me.
Oh dear. Great.
Well, if you get back to London, try the Hard Rock Cafe right next door. There's a place called the Vault, and it used to be an old bank, I think, and they acquired the building. But they've got that thing. If you're a fan of guitars, I don't know if you can see all my menagerie behind me, but they have got some amazing history in that Vault building. Yeah, you name it. Just anybody who was anybody back in the 60s, 70s, etc.
Interesting.
Guitars, everything. They've actually got John Lennon's glasses that he was wearing when he got killed, and I don't know, it's just handwritten music and things like that.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, huh? That is pretty cool. I'll have to remember that. The Vault. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can stop and get a pint and go across the street and
right.
Get your history bug on.
Yeah. Yeah.
My claim to fame in that era is I actually saw Buddy Holly live in concert.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh man,
that would have been cool.
Yeah, they used to wind up the old 78 and they used to put the needle on. That's the one.
When it comes to interesting channels, has anybody heard of Mr. Carlson's Lab?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I find that quite interesting because although it's not strictly ham radio, he has done some good projects and good diving projects.
Uh-huh.
When I left school and went to college, I actually went to college to do electronic servicing, which focused on TV and radio and associated things. Although I've never done it as a job, I went straight into industrial stuff from there. So it's interesting to look back on that stuff and sort of get up to speed on certain areas.
Yeah. Well, you started showcasing up and coming YouTubers, haven't you, Jason? Which I thought was very good. I thought it was really. I mean, I don't know how you find them. I mean, presumably you go trawling through and then come across them and ask them.
Actually, one of the guys who hangs out with our normal crew, Kyle AA0Z. I think he's not going to renew his application, but he was the president of a big ham radio club in St. Louis, and I don't know why, but he put together the spreadsheet one day, and he's like, here's all the ham radio channels I can find on YouTube, and there was like 100 of them, and he keeps up to date with that, and he keeps adding stuff to it. I'm like, I guess you just he got the itch one day to just find everything that was out there. So a lot of the stuff I find is through that spreadsheet he shared with everybody.
Gosh, amazing. Yeah, well, good though. It's good. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. It's coming up to 2030 here. I think if it's all right with everyone, I think we'll call it a day. What do you think, Andy? You all right with that?
No, that's absolutely fine. No, that's fine. Yeah. I'm really pleased that you came on, Jason, and gave
thank you.
An insight in particular to DMR, because I think you covered a lot of ground that it's explained it to certainly to me a lot better. So I really do appreciate that.
Yep.
That's great.
No problem.
No, thank you very much for your support. That's great. And we'll see. We'll all look forward to the next video, which I guess is going to be going up any day now.
It should go live in like 2 hours. So about 2 hours.
Yeah. How many do you have in the frame?
I'm sorry, what?
What is this one going to be on? Oh, I'm sorry. Doubling.
You go first.
Oh, I was asking, what's this video going to be on?
This is the new I don't have it in here. This is a new HT from Waxon or Ochang, however you want to say their name. The new UV8 Tango. I'm sorry, UV8 Hotel. It's got it's a little bit different design, and it's got a black screen with white text, so it's an easier to look at display. Got a really cool display on it. So it's a new dual band HT. So,
all right.
And just finally, I was asking, how many do you have in the pipe ready to go? Do you are you got a couple in, or do you?
You know, the big bottleneck is the editing time. I've probably only got one other after the one that goes tonight. I've probably only got one other posted and ready to go, but I've probably got 8 or 10 or 12, they're needing to be edited and put together and be uploaded to YouTube. So recording them's not that hard usually. Editing them is what takes most of the time. So
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Jason. Thanks very much.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's very kind.
Very much.
Thanks for the invite.
Cheers. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Take care. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along.
Cheers.
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 See ya.
Cheers. So,
Still here. A lot of people are dropping out. We'll see who's
Gonna stay.
we'll see who's gonna stay. Yeah, I'll try. I'm just having a look and seeing. I've got Jeff, I've got Pete, I've got Ross, I've got Nigel, I've got Alan, I've got Michael, I've got Patrick. Yeah, I think that's pretty much. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the.
Can you stop the recording? It gives me less to edit.
Yeah. Of course.